Good morning. Thank you so much. Look, we love this partnership. It is such a powerful coming together. Food Tank, Organic Valley, and the James Beard Foundation. I just want to thank Danny and Samantha and indeed Anne and the whole impact team here, especially Anna and Emily from my group. So chefs change the world. This is a notion that sits at the very core of our mission, our philosophy, and our work at the James Beard Foundation. It's what animates us and motivates us. Our raison d'etre is to harness the power of chefs to make positive change in the world. And when you consider some of the most pressing issues and challenges facing us today, health and hunger, wealth disparities, cultural identity, immigrant rights, and of course the impact of climate change, food and chefs are a fundamental part of the equation every time. I think often we default to think about chefs through a narrow lens, as people who feed us, maybe people who delight us, but there's so much more than that. They're diplomats, community leaders, educators, advocates, and powerful change makers. If you think about it, chefs occupy a very potent place in society and the economy. They sit at a powerful nexus between supply and demand. They represent over 200 billion in revenues. It's a huge, huge industry. That's just the independent restaurant industry alone. So they can shape the supply chain, they can shape consumer taste and awareness, and they can shape political discourse and policy. So let's look at each of those. The independent restaurant industry represents hundreds of thousands of small businesses that in aggregate have incredible, immense buying power. The choices, the menu choices and product choices that chefs make directly influence the shape of supply, what's been grown, where and how it's been grown, and by whom, and what's being produced. So when chefs commit to sustainably sourced and regenerative ingredients, they can create demand that shifts supply towards sustainable practices. It's basic economics. You know, we know these environmental challenges can feel overwhelming, as Samantha was saying. You know, at times they can feel intractable. But one area where every single one of us has agency is around our food choices. And chefs are so vital in influencing those decisions. And with millions of diners coming through their doors every day, they have the opportunity to shape consumer tastes and trends. They are literally tastemakers. What chefs choose to serve and the narrative and the information they provide helps educate and inspire consumers and shifts consumer awareness and demand. And being exposed to delicious sustainable proteins or non-fashionable cuts of meat or fish or underutilized crops, tasting, delighting in, enjoying them is a far more effective means of changing behavior and adoption than something that is academic or theoretical. It moves it from that to the actual and the personal. And we can see the ripple effect when chefs bring ingredients into the mainstream, whether it's through delicious kelp recipes or innovative rebranding of trash fish to the mass adoption of ancient grains now. It's far more compelling and aspirational source of discovery and adoption. And I've been following some of the program this week, and I was listening to Andrew Zimmern, and he said, you know, sustainability without craveability is a dead end. If you're going to make change, you better make it fucking delicious. And I endorse this message. So chefs can change the supply chain, they can change consumer behavior, and they can drive systemic change at scale through policy. So some of the diners coming through the doors of these restaurants every day are lawmakers, and they increasingly appreciate the influence and reach that chefs have with their constituencies, as well as the very real economic value they represent in their areas. They want to hear from them, and they're interested. And at the same time as this interest and appreciation of lawmakers is rising, so too is the motivation of chefs to get up and speak up. At times through necessity, and they are stepping up as the role of advocates more and more. And a really important dimension that Samantha and Anne just referenced is that chefs are trusted. They're a trusted voice. At a time when trust in corporations, institutions, government, and the media is at a real low, and representatives know this, they can see chefs as an effective instrument and a way to engage voters. So what's the role of the James Beard Foundation in all of this? You know, we've recognised this change-making potential in chefs for a long time. And at the foundation, we've been training chefs and operators to harness their voice, their platform and their agency through our Chef Bootcamp for Policy and Change. We've been running this program now for over 13 years, and we have over 500 alum from that program alone. And many of the chefs coming through our doors every day also have this advocacy training. So we have a real critical mass of change agents. And in fact, you're going to hear from 3 of our bootcamp alum later today. So we train, we connect, and we mobilize. Look, a lot of emphasis is put on the chefs and restaurants. What can they do to adopt sustainable practices? What can they do to affect this change? But they're also downstream. They're recipients of this, and they're massively impacted by climate change and the challenges thereof. So last year, we launched the James Beard Foundation, Our Climate Solutions for Restaurant Survival campaign. Together with the George Washington Global Food Institute, we undertook original research to provide empirical data on the impact of climate events on restaurants and farmers. We want to make the case in a really dispassionate way. We lay out the numbers and they open the door. And so many of these major climate events are having a devastating impact on the restaurant businesses. And if we do nothing, we are going to see mass closures. Anne referenced this. Extreme weather events like floods and drought and fire all impact the availability, the quality, the taste, and the cost of key ingredients. Can you imagine running a restaurant, a fish restaurant, and your signature salmon dish costs one thing one week, and then the next month later, that salmon is doubled in price or changed in flavor or even not available? It's really hard to run a restaurant the best of times, but with this unreliability and variability as a result of climate impacts, it's really hard. Equally, day-to-day operations are being disrupted by extreme weather. Temperatures, hot and cold, power outages. Can't serve outside, have to use your AC, if the power goes out, you lose all your food, etc. It's really tough. And just thinking about just within the last 12 months, look at the impact of Hurricane Helene in North Carolina, or the wildfires in LA, or the floods in Texas. These challenges to the restaurant community were immense. And at the same time, it's the restaurant community that rises up in these occasions and looks after the community and feeds the community. So within our campaign, over 2,500 chefs have been involved thus far, lending their voice and energy to push for policies around crop diversification, regenerative farming, sustainable fishing practices, efficient resource use, and more. We've marshaled chefs across the country and connected them to lawmakers that have real skin in the game. We've convened over 80 conversations and roundtables and garnered nearly 1.5 billion media impressions, which speaks to the power of the message and critically to the interest of the messenger. But policy is a long game, and we're here for it. So I'm going to end this with a call to action for everyone here this morning who is involved in climate action. Consider chefs as key stakeholders in this fight. They're allies. They have first-hand experience of the impact and indeed the solutions. And they can engage consumers like none other. The climate change is introducing fruit flies to the stage. So I enjoin you, join the James Beard Foundation's climate campaign. This work is more important than ever. And I truly applaud all the chefs that are changing the world for good. Thank you so much.